This video will include both a detailed description of what genograms are, as well as information that you need to know in order to be able to complete the genogram assignment for this course. And I'm going to get started with describing the genogram assignment. This is my favorite assignment across any of the classes that I teach. I really think that it is very powerful in the same way that I hope many of you felt that your lifespan development class project was also important, where you reviewed your own development through the psychosocial lens. For the genogram, you're going to use some of the broad themes about families and family counseling that we've discussed, but you're also going to talk about why one model in particular, a model that you select, would be helpful in conceptualizing your own family. And to help you to conceptualize your family, you're going to create a genogram. What I find to be most powerful about this assignment is, first, the sharing of the genogram with other beginning counselors and hearing other beginning counselors talk about their families. And then secondly, what is also powerful and important about this assignment is the opportunity that it provides for you to reflect on your family and to possibly identify some blind spots that might get in the way of your ability to work well with families as a counselor. So I recognize that this is an online class, and doing a presentation in an online class, there are lots of different options for ways that you can present your work through a recording to other people in the class. But I feel so strongly that you will get much more out of this experience if you actually are face-to-face with each other and telling the story of your families to each other through your genograms, being in the same room together. So what I've done is, within the syllabus, created a 2-week window of time where there will not be other assignments happening in the class, but it will just be an opportunity for you and a few other people from class who have schedules that you can get to sync up, to arrange to meet each other, and I'll assist with the campus location for that, and share your genograms. So what I've posted here on Blackboard is the genogram checklist, and that's this document here. So when you open that attachment, you'll see the first thing that you need to do is to construct your genogram, and there's the description of that. That's 10 points out of the 30 points total. You're going to submit your actual genogram to me, the actual artifact that is the picture of your family, by April 29th. That will give you enough time to complete all of your presentations, hopefully. And then the next component, also worth 10 points, is the presentation of your genogram to other students in the class and then hearing their presentations. So when you turn in your actual genogram, you're also going to submit to me a note that identifies who listened to your presentation, whose presentations did you listen to, the start time and end time of your presentation, and one sentence that summarizes the value of hearing others' genogram presentations to your development as a counselor. And then the final component of this assignment is the reflection paper, which is 4 to 6 pages long, also worth 10 points. Now that's going to be due to me first over email by April 22nd, 5:30 p.m. You can email it to me, or you can submit a hard copy to me. I'm not going to have a link on Blackboard for you to submit it to me, so email is fine, or you can drop off a copy if you're on campus. You're going to want to answer the questions that are listed in this document here, and whenever you cite something, you're going to use APA format. So it's mainly a reflection paper. You don't have to pull in a lot of outside sources, but because you are actually referring to a model of family counseling, you will likely want to reference your textbook or some of the additional resources that I post on Blackboard that are relevant to you and your family. So That the genogram checklist attachment should be very helpful to you as you formulate the assignment. The next thing on Blackboard is a web link to the Doodle poll. And the Doodle poll, if you've never used Doodle poll before, it's just an online scheduling app that allows multiple people to indicate when they're available for an event. So you click on this link and it will take you to the Doodle poll for the genogram presentations. There's a brief description here of exactly what is meant by the genogram presentation. And you're going to want to go to the... Okay, so what you'll do is to type in your name. You see my name is listed here, and then whatever your preference is for meeting out of all these dates and times listed here, you're just going to check the boxes to say, yep, one of those. And over time, we'll end up having all 21 students in class will have their names listed here and the times that they're available checked off here. After the poll closes, after the Doodle poll closes, then I'll go back in and tally up when everybody is meeting and send out email confirmations, and we'll wrap everything up with that. But the Doodle poll will be open for a few weeks until March 25th at 11:59 p.m. That will give everyone a chance to check their schedules, try to free up some time. When you go into the Doodle poll, you'll notice that there is 4-hour blocks. Each of the time slots are for 4-hour blocks. It probably won't take 4 hours, but I just wanted to be generous depending on the size of the group that meets. Okay, the other resources that are available here are the Genogram PowerPoint, which we'll get into in just a second, a document called Explaining Genograms. This is something I recommend that you keep a copy of for your use in your clinical work, but this is also going to be helpful as you actually construct your genogram. This will provide a lot of symbols and things that you can incorporate. Your book also lists a few of those as well too. And then there's 2 resources about cultural genograms. This is a really helpful training tool, and so these articles talk about the role of creating a genogram, incorporating attention to culture within the genogram, and the value of that to counselors in training. Then there is a link to an online genogram program. I recommend that you just use a trifold poster board to draw your genogram on. That's what students have used most successfully in the past. Of course, you're going to want to be neat. But if you like to do things electronically, or if you're not able to attend one of the face-to-face sessions, we're going to have to come up with a more tech-savvy alternative, and it will include using the genogram program that's here. And then the final link is to an interview with Monica McGoldrick. Monica McGoldrick is someone who's really well known in family counseling, especially for her work with incorporating culture and family. And so this is a link to an interview with her, and through it she talks a little bit about genograms, and she's just a pretty interesting person, and I think you'll enjoy hearing her talk a little bit about her work. Of course, you're going to want to click down to here. All right, so for now we're going to switch over to genograms, the purpose, types, and process of genograms. So a genogram is you've heard of a family tree or a family map. It's just basically a picture of your family. It's important to include 3 generations or more, and for the purpose of your assignment, that's 3 generations beginning with you and going backwards. So if you have children or grandchildren, then you're going to have 4 or 5 generations, because you're going to include 1 or 2 generations going forward from your generation. But everyone in class will have at least 3 generations. That's you, your siblings and cousins. The generation prior to that would be your parents, aunts, and uncles, and the generation prior to that would be your grandparents' generation and all of the family members included within that. The purpose of the genogram is really to gather information about the clients. But while you're doing that, you can it's a great way to connect with your family, to kind of put them at ease, and so that helps to facilitate the joining process. It is a great way to pull out what some of the themes and patterns are that happen across families. And as you recall from learning about Bowenian family counseling, Murray Bowen was a really strong believer that there are these multi-generational impacts to families. So there are these issues that occur across multiple generations of a family. And then finally, a purpose of the genogram is that it's a great tool for training new family counselors. So joining is really important. Everything that you do as a family counselor just is built on hopefully a really, really stable family joining process. And when you are drawing a genogram, it's a really helpful way to get a multi-generational family unit involved, because older members of the family are going to have more history. Younger members of the family might assist in actually drawing. You can draw it on a piece of paper, or you can use a large dry erase board, which is what I tended to use when I was a family counselor. Have a large dry erase board in the session with you and some dry erase markers, and you can get some of the kids to help to draw some of the circles and squares. So it helps to see a family depicted over time. It helps the family to look for new ways, old patterns, and new opportunities for support, strengths, limitations, and so forth. You just get a huge amount of information when you are developing a genogram, and you can really tailor the information to whatever the problem that the family is experiencing might be. For example, if it's adolescent substance abuse, you can really heavily emphasize substance use and abuse across multi-generations of the family in the genogram. You always want to get started with one side of the family and then work backwards from there. You're going to get a lot of information about who's talking to who's not talking, who's similar, who's different, how did people meet each other. In terms of using a genogram to train family counselors, the 2 articles that I provided about cultural genograms are very helpful in learning more about how a genogram can be useful to you and to your development. But basically, it's going to help you to kind of get more in touch with your own biases and assumptions about family life, and some things that you have been exposed to that maybe other people have not been exposed to in their family, or some things where perhaps your family never was exposed to some issues. When you're doing a cultural genogram, you really want to get in touch with what are the organizing principles, the pride and shame issues about the particular culture of origin for a family, and if there's multiple cultures present within one family, then how those can conflict with each other. Some relevant definitions to family. The spiritual genogram, this is really interesting. New families, new couples that have joined together and in particular are raising children sometimes have conflicts over different religious values, and sometimes younger members of a family, the religion changes over time, and so they have a different relationship to the spiritual practice than perhaps their parents did, and that can cause some problems as well. So a spiritual genogram can be a helpful tool. Mental illness, and as I mentioned a minute ago, substance abuse, trouble with the law, work history, all of these things are really helpful. So when you're working with a client, here's a couple of questions that you want to make sure that you ask. How many times were each of the parents married? You want to list all the marriages. How many siblings did each parent have? Where was the parent in the birth order? Who's living in the household? Date of birth, date of death, locations where people lived, occupations, educational levels. That'll help identify first-generation college students, for example. And it's something that, while it's helpful to do in one session, it can be developed and revised over several sessions. And throughout the whole experience, the family is gaining more and more insight. The big thing when you're interpreting a genogram is to look for repetition and relationship patterns. So this is where the family can start to understand their story and then start to change their story. So, do you have to do a genogram every time you work with a family? No. And in fact, some family therapists prefer that the information covered emerge throughout therapeutic conversations and relationships. But it is a